Welcome to The Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where purpose meets performance and leaders are built to shift legacies. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, executive strategist, speaker, and the secret weapon behind leaders who drive transformation at the highest levels. Each episode delivers bold truths, power skills, and real-world strategies to help you lead with precision, show up with presence, and build the kind of influence that outlasts trends. This is the space where high-impact decisions are born, where influence is intentional, and where the bold don't just lead, they change the game. So if you're ready to rise, ready to lead, and ready to create the kind of impact that moves markets, missions, and minds, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn Payne. I am here with the woman who I greatly admire. I'm so happy that she was able to join us on our podcast today. But let me give you a little bit about Liz's background. She's been named one of 2025 top 30 global gurus for leadership, along with Simon Sinek and John Maxwell. How was that for you? So when Liz Weber talks, her clients listen. Liz is an advisor to boards, owners, and C-suite teams. She's a leadership, strategic, and succession planning consultant, author, and speaker. Liz helps her clients focus on the right things at the right time to get the right impact. As a result, they enhance performance, profits, and their workplace culture. Let's welcome Liz. Hey, Liz.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you, Dr. Sharalyn.
Thank you for joining me. I am thrilled that you are here. As I was sharing with you, I've learned a little bit about you. You are the real deal. I mean, you've written so many books. That's the first thing. You have this blog that is so deep and rich with content. You're speaking all around the world. So I think if anybody can talk to us about leadership, you are more than qualified. So thank you for being on. So let's just hop right into it. I have a question for you. Was leadership something that you got into purposefully, or did it just find you?
I have never been asked that question before. It's a great question. In full candor, I think I was somewhat born into it. And I say that because I'm the youngest of 13 children.
Wow.
And my parents owned a family-owned business. It was a mobile home park and also a TV and appliance business. So as children, we grew up being the workforce for our parents, primarily my dad, and then also helping with my mom. And one of the things that my parents taught us without articulating it was observe what's happening. You know what the outcome needs to be. Watch the players and identify what needs to happen next, even if you aren't told what needs to happen next, and be able to fill that role in whatever needs to be done. And I say that because whether we were setting the house up for Christmas dinner when people were coming over and figuring out where to put the tables and where to put the food and where to find the extra chairs, we just started learning how to read the room and figure out what needed to be done. And with my father, when working on a construction project, it was watching what he was doing and anticipating what tool he would need next. And I just share that then because as I got into college, I started taking an aerobics class because I was putting on weight because it was the first time I was at home. And let's just say I was partying too much and eating too much. And I needed to start exercising to take some weight off. And I realized that if I could teach the class, I could also get paid for exercising. And when I started teaching and I was in front of the group, I just was comfortable being there. I was just comfortable leading the group. And that just kind of segued into different opportunities, whether I was leading a project in college or when I got my first job. I never shied away from seeing an opportunity, and then if someone needed to lead it, I would lead it. So long answer to your question, but I think I was kind of born into it, and then it became part of my DNA.
Perfect. I love that story. So that leads me to another question. Do you believe the leaders are born or are they made? And we hear people asking this question all the time, but I would love to know, based upon what you just shared with us, what's your thoughts on that?
I think they can be made if they have a desire and they haven't been given the skill sets or the opportunities before. Um, some individuals, I think like me, you just have the good fortune of, by genetics, your parents were leaders and business owners, but also had opportunities to learn from them. But I've so many of the clients that I worked with, and I mean managers that I worked with, particularly those that have been new to management, initially they're quite often they're so nervous about, I don't know if I can do this. And as an example, one of my daughters, when she was offered her first management position, she called and said, I don't know if I can do this. I said, what are you talking about? You don't know if you can do this. When you were waitressing in high school, they were asking you to train the other waitresses. When you were doing this job, within 6 months, they were asking you to teach other people how to do this job. That's part of being a supervisor. That's part of it. And so I think if people are more clear, if they're given an opportunity to be more clear about really what it means to be a leader of other people, um, it doesn't need to be as nebulous and seemingly oppressive as what it really is. Granted, it's hard, but I think people can learn how to do it if they want to be a good leader.
I love that response because I say the same thing. Actually, when people ask me, it depends. I think there are people who are born into the role. That's just who they are. It's part of their DNA. It's part of their unique gifting, their skill set. I'm a believer, so I'm going to say it's part of their gifting. But also, I think that you have the opportunity to decide, I want to be a leader. I'm going to figure out what that entails, and I'm going to study and commit myself to being a great leader and understanding that it's impact. You're having impact on people, positive or negative, when you are a leader. And when you have that awareness of what I do matters, it totally shifts things. And I think that sometimes we don't really talk about that impact. We talk about these are the behaviors. This is what you should say. This is how you should look. This is how you should show up. But we never really talk about, what you share with your daughter. What are you talking about? This is what it entails. You've been doing it all along. And
Hmm.
I loved how you gave her that encouragement and helped her to come to that decision and be able to see who she was, what was
Hmm.
already inside of her. So that's powerful.
Yeah. Now, I really appreciate the fact that you talk about impact because, in full candor, today I just finished designing a program for a client, and it's all about the leadership, and your team is always watching you
Mhm.
and how you interact with them, how you communicate with them, or you don't, has an impact.
True.
And you reap what you sow quite often. So I
Oh,
am
that's
fully
good.
aligned with you on that.
That's good. You reap what you sow. And so we need to remember that. So let's talk about some of the problems or challenges, opportunities that are facing organizations right now. What would you say is the most pressing challenge facing leaders and organizations today?
With my client base, and I'll speak only to that. And my client base is comprised of government agencies at the state level, government agencies, trade associations, nonprofits, and some privately held family-owned businesses. And but we'll keep it at that.
Mhm.
And across those industries and across those sectors, without a doubt, the number one challenge that all of my clients are facing is there is a lack of leadership depth and a lack of talent pool depth. And we've been hearing it for years, but most of my clients are somewhat in a crisis situation. And what's driven that is two parts. Number one, when COVID hit, a number of individuals that were anticipating retiring within the next 3 to 5 years retired early when COVID hit. It was like, you know what, I'm done. I'll just leave early. I'm close enough to retirement. I'll leave. So when those unplanned rapid exits happened, there wasn't time and there weren't systems yet in place quite often to train the next level down to either take over or hold things together. So that was a swath of talent. Then what's happened just within, the past several months on a national scale with changes in funding and with changes in federal programs and federal agencies, that has taken another swath away from clients, whether they are a state agency or a government agency, or if they're a subcontractor. If they're in one of those tangent industries, their budgets are being impacted and they've lost talent. So that's happened. But the driving force on this whole thing, Sharalyn, is just the rapidity at which changes are happening. It doesn't matter if you've been in leadership for 5 years or 25 years. It is crazy right now. And the myriad of things that you have to juggle, many of which you've never had to juggle before, is really straining my leaders and their teams, just not knowing what to do. So the number one desire that my clients have is they rapidly need leaders and staff that are much more competent and much more confident in the work that they're doing.
Thank you for that. So, what role does confidence play? I think we all know we need to be competent, right? Or most of us know that we should be competent in the roles that we're in. But what about confidence? How does confidence have an impact?
Well, it's interesting the way you said that because it somewhat goes back to the conversation we were just having about leaders being born into it or learning to be leaders. And I think you and I and all your listeners can agree. Sometimes we've come across a leader and you're going, how did this person ever get this job, and how can they still be in this job because the skill sets are not there.
Right.
Um, and one of the things I see with individuals who are lacking confidence in themselves and the positions they hold is they know there are aspects of the job that they currently have that they're not solid in yet. And for whatever reason, they hold themselves back or they're held back by either gaining the skill sets or bringing in the support they need to supplement them to fully do the jobs that they are being paid to do. And so they just try to cover it, and you can just see their lack of confidence. It just comes out in various ways in conversations or meetings or even how they send an email or text or whatever it might be. Um, so a lack of confidence I see actually more prevalently in probably the past 18 months than I ever have in my 30 something years of doing this. And I believe it goes back to what I had just said earlier, is that there are just so many changes happening so rapidly that people's skill sets are getting peaked out and they're getting overloaded, and they know they're starting to drop balls, and it's worrisome for them.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. That brings me to another question. So, what role does AI play in that?
Well, it depends upon the industry. My government clients are not allowed to use AI, which is an interesting position to put them in. But they're not allowed to use AI on the job. And for my other clients, it's a matter of learning what role can the AI tools play to take away the work that obviously can be easily handled by an AI agent or an AI tool, to then free your team members or your leaders up to do things that are much more enterprise wide focused and need relationships and need strategic thinking and critical thinking skills to get them done. That's a mouthful, but it's still easy to say, it's not easy to do, because I'm still dealing with a client base where there are many employees who still like doing the work they've always done in the way they've done it for the past 10 or 15 years. And so when you introduced this idea of AI streamlining potential operations or taking over some highly manual operations and activities, we still get this pushback. And what I've seen when I work with my clients on this, and this is not my area of expertise, but when we've worked on a little bit, is simply making employees more aware of when we're talking about AI doing this, this is what we mean. You know, for some reason they like have these visions of robots coming in and robots like, running the office or running their workplace. It's like, no, it's
Right?
like a little app. And we put this in and it generates a spreadsheet for you. And they're like, oh, really? And it's like,
Right.
that's what it really is. And so it's a matter of more fully and more clearly educating what AI applications we're really talking about and how with specific examples it could help a specific process or a specific function without eliminating the person. And I need a caveat. It might change that person's job, but it doesn't necessarily mean that person can't then be relocated to perform something that provides even greater value to the company.
I love that you shared that. I asked the question because, there are leaders or professionals who are in the workplace and they are terrified of AI. And then we have what you just addressed. We have the second group who is afraid that, if I use AI or if we're adopting AI, then my job or role will be eliminated. And
Mhm.
so we have to find the bridge in today's workplace of if you can use the tool, how do you use the tool? If you can't use the tool, like for your clients at work, then how do I use the tool perhaps at home to help me to become better at asking the right questions, really thinking more strategically, how to
Mhm.
present my information in such a way that makes logical sense. And so there are things that we can do independent. We may not be able to feed it data, but we can use that or some type of tool to help us to become more confident in the role that we're doing. And I think what I see often, or what I'm starting to see, is that fear is taking over. So now we have people who are saying, well, with AI, it's taking over and, you're not going to be able to think. And so it's going to work against you. And so it's all of these things that we need to kind of dive in and see how do we make it work for us and how can it be our competitive advantage, today
Mhm.
because it's not going away. And so if it's not going away, how do we make it work where we can work with it instead of in
Mhm.
of something, so we're
Mm,
constantly evolving. And I think it goes back to what you were saying in the very beginning, anticipating change, anticipating the need, being able to adapt to that. And that's all it is, right? When we think about it from that lens. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah, you're welcome. And I'll just tap on here because I was talking to a colleague about this because she speaks on AI. And I said, because she asked me, she said, "Are you afraid of AI and what it can do to the consulting arena?" And I said, "No, I'm not, because um, sure, there are certain things that it's going to cause me to have to get more efficient in and change the way I do some things and leverage AI to do it. But I still do all my own writing. I still do all my own speaking. I still do my own posts for social media, which I could have AI do all of that, but it doesn't feel right for me to do that. I need to write my own content. But the reason I don't feel threatened by it is in a situation like this right now. If I don't have the history and the expertise that I have, if I've relied on AI to write all my content for me or to do everything for me, I wouldn't be in a position to be able to have a conversation with you
Right?
because it's
Sure.
not my expertise. I mean,
Right.
I don't have the prompts inside my head. And what I share with you, and as our conversation is going to continue, it's going to be based upon my experience with clients and what I've experienced with them, what I've recommended to them, not what AI prompted me to say.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Thank you. So, our next question I have for you: what is causing managers and leaders to not be as effective as they need to be? And you kind of talked about that a little bit before, but I want to touch on that a little bit more. So, can you share with us that?
I would say the number one reason managers and leaders are not effective in the current state of affairs is that because they are so busy, most of them, and I say most intentionally, most of them are defaulting to doing what they used to do well or what they've always
Mm,
done
that's good.
versus what they should be doing given the position they currently hold. And what I mean by that is I had a long coaching conversation with a client this morning. Um, this is an executive VP, and she is doing work that her administrative staff should be doing. And she's
Mhm.
so overwhelmed that she can't get things done. But it's like, why are you doing, X? Well, I just want to, I can just get it done. No, because in the 3 minutes that you say it's going to take you to do that, that 3 minutes, you could actually have sent out three different text messages to other team members who are waiting for responses from you at the executive level. And and I see, we've all had this when we've done the studies on human nature, and you've done the studies on stress, and you've done the studies on personality styles. When we get stressed, we default to our most dominant style. And
Yes.
whatever personality assessment you've taken, when you've got that strong behavior type, whether it's a D and DISC or anything else, we default to what can I do quickly to get off my checklist and get things done. And I see that manifest itself in my clients of they double down and they do things that either the management level below them should be doing or the level below that should be doing. And they're not doing the things at the higher level because those things aren't as easy and quick to tick off the list.
Agreed. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's pivot and talk about one of my favorite favorite things to talk about, and you've mentioned it a little bit, but I want to talk about culture. What role does culture play in the, I would say, in attracting and sustaining talent, especially when we're seeing that there's a shortage of leaders and a shortage of talent? Can you talk to us about the role that culture actually plays?
Well, like and probably most of your listeners know, talent or culture is everything. It's the personality of the organization, and the organization's culture will either help you attract talent or it will cause you to repel talent, and it will cause you to churn talent quickly. Um, and so when I work with my clients and we know we need to do a culture reset, it's typically a situation where we need to identify, number one, what type of culture do you want and need in order to achieve the vision and the objectives of this organization. And culture, when I work with my clients, the cultural framework is the vision, mission, and values that somewhat establish the personality that you're looking for with the company. And so we have conversations around what does this work environment and what does this experience need to feel like and be like to any employee. Let's describe that. Let's capture that, because then what we need to do then is look at, this is the culture you want, and what are the adjectives that describe that, and what are the adjectives that describe the culture you currently have, and what's causing the culture you currently have, and what do you need to do or change to get to the culture you want. Um, and that lays out, a whole series of activities that are tagged onto their strategic plan to move things forward. But you know, culture is everything. It's a baseline. It's going to be virtually impossible for you to implement what you want to implement from your strategic plan or elsewhere effectively and have it be sustained if your culture is a mess.
Agreed, agreed. Can you share with us a case study, maybe perhaps from one of your past clients, that demonstrates that improving culture actually has an impact, a positive impact on the bottom line?
Yeah, one of the clients that I have worked with is a regional bank, a community bank, and the president CEO of the bank reached out to me because she had been newly appointed to her position, and like 6 months before, the board had told her, you need to turn this thing around financially. It was basically stagnant in revenue growth. It had been around for well over 100 years. The previous CEO had basically been on autopilot for the last 15 years. And she said, the board has told me that I need to implement performance reviews on staff. They've never done them as far as I know. And I heard about you, and I'm calling to see if you can do training for us on how to do performance reviews. And I said, well, I don't typically do that as a one-off, but tell me more what is driving this? And she said, well, we're not making money. The president of the board owns several car dealerships, and he knows if you set performance goals and you do performance planning, employees are going to really take off. And I said, well, okay, do you have a strategic plan with a clear vision and clear timelines? No. Do you have clear goals for the bank and for all your departments and for all your employees? No. I just want to reiterate or ask a question. You've said that your managers have never done this before. Correct. Do all your employees have position descriptions so they know what's expected of them in their positions? And she said, no. And I said, okay, thank you for sharing all of that. That's really helpful. So here's my suggestion to you. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't do this. And I will not help you start with performance reviews because your bank is not ready. Your managers are not ready and your employees are not ready because there is nothing that your bank managers have as far as objective data to point to give any one of their employees feedback on how they should elevate their performance because there are no expectations of them, of their branches, of the bank and whole. So it's all going to be subjective. And what's going to compound it further is if they don't have great relationships with their team members, and she jumped in and she said they don't, I said, nobody's going to want to get feedback from them anyway. So the morale issues you're having are just going to get further exacerbated. I said, what I would recommend instead is that you have to kind of start with a clean slate, and the timing is right. You're a new CEO, new president. Now's the time to work with the board to lay out the new vision, the new goals, the new timelines, the new expectations, the new performance standards of the bank, and then we can tear it down from there. So after that long introduction, long story short, she was fully on board. The board got on board. And it was a multi-year process, Sharalyn, but what we did was we did strategic planning with them. We did training with the entire bank. We changed their vision, mission, values, and training with all employees on what they mean, how they fit in, what's expected of behaviors. We provided leadership training over several years. We provided training to all staff on what it means to be a part of the bank and how to have their own goals. We had position descriptions created. We did a compensation study. We got everybody leveled up on their compensation and just started having regular conversations with them and gathering sessions to start this cadence of here's the plan, here are the expectations for the bank, here's what it means for your department or your branch, here's what it means for this individual employee, and here's where we have some gaps. And then here are the steps we're going to take to help close those gaps. And after that very long explanation, I'm really, really thrilled to say that the last day that I walked into a training program, I walked in and there were people there a half an hour before I was supposed to start, and they're meandering around, and you have the VP of Commercial Lending Services is talking to a bunch of tellers from one branch, and other people are over here mixing and mingling, and the CEO walked in and nobody cared. She just kind of sat down and people started talking with her. I create that visual because when we first started and I walked into the training room, there was nobody there. Nobody showed up until about 2 minutes before we started. People sat around the room with their arms crossed. Nobody would talk. People sat in little cliques depending upon which office they worked in, and there was no feedback. And so, a very long answer to your question, changing culture is a process. It takes time because you're changing behaviors and you're reestablishing trust where trust has probably been broken, and that takes time.
Thank you. Thank you. That is a powerful answer. And more importantly, it demonstrates why you're one of the best and a trusted advisor and why people should listen to you. I love that you actually, helped her to arrive at the best decision and share with her why her approach or why the recommended approach was not necessarily correct and gave her something different that actually was impactful for that organization. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it worked. It worked out well for them.
Absolutely. So what takeaway advice or comments would you leave with our audience?
I think that the question or takeaway comment would be, what type of leader do I believe I am now?
Mm,
What type of leader would my team say I am? But most importantly, what does my team need of me so they can do their jobs better? Is
love
it
that.
more clarity? Is it more time for me to just listen to them and not talk at them? Is it more guidance? Is it less sporadic behavior and more focus? And I just share that because most of us know what we need to fix. We just don't have enough self-discipline quite often and restraint to do it. And so the question is, what does my team need of me to be the best leader for them now?
Love the question. Thank you, Liz. So you guys have it. We have our powerful takeaway, our question. We're going within, looking within. We're becoming more self-aware and then using that information, that guidance to lead us to our next best path so we can get the results and the profitability for the organization that we desire while we're impacting and leaving a legacy. So thank you for that. Liz, before we wrap up, what's next? How can our listeners find you? Where do we direct them to if they want to know more about you and the work that you do?
I would recommend two ways. Number one, I am most active on LinkedIn. And so I would love for your listeners to connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn. And my handle on LinkedIn is Liz Weber CMC, and Weber has just one B. Or my website, they're welcome to go to my website, which is the letters of my company name. So it's WB as in boy, S as in Sam, LLC.com. That stands for Weber Business Services LLC.com.
Thank you. We'll love to have another conversation with you and go even deeper when we talk about leadership and culture, and then bringing in some powerful topics on communications. I know that you're a communications expert, a speaker as well, and so we'll love for you to share more stories with our audience. Guys,
That'd be
thank you,
great.
Weber. Thank you. You don't lead like everyone else, so your resources shouldn't look like everyone else's. I created the Game Changer Leadership Collection for high impact leaders like you, visionaries, change agents, decision makers who lead with intention and influence. This free, high impact resource pulls from my leadership arsenal and delivers immediate, actionable insights you can use right now to elevate your influence, lead with conviction, and drive lasting transformation. It's not just a toolkit, it's your first step toward leading at the level you were born for. Let me show you what's inside. The Leadership Edge Sampler. It's a preview of my 10 daily power skills to sharpen your influence and impact. The Influence Language Mini Guide. Essential phrases to increase your authority and build trust in every room you walk into. The Leadership Blind Spot Snapshot. Because the greatest risk are the ones we don't see. The power of one visual aid. A reminder that even one decision, one tone, or one conversation can shift a team or stall a movement. The Executive Briefing Checklist, a go to tool for high stakes communication that drives clarity and alignment. The 5 minute accountability brief, a no fluff framework to build a culture of ownership fast. And we have the Game Changer Ascension Model Overview, my proprietary leadership growth map to help you scale your influence with intention. These are the very same tools I use with executives, culture shapers, and elite teams, leaders who know what's at stake and aren't here to play small. Because when you're called to shift systems, influence nations, and build legacies, you can't afford to lead on autopilot. This is where your next level begins. Download the Game Changer Leadership Collection today. It's free, it's strategic, and it's built for leaders who are born to shift the game. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, and this is your Leadership Edge. Thank you for joining me on the Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where we don't follow trends, we set them, and we don't just lead teams, we shift legacies. If today's message challenged, stretched, or inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, tag it, lead through it, because real leaders don't just consume wisdom, they multiply it. Want to go deeper? Subscribe to the Ultra Influential newsletter for exclusive tools, behind-the-scenes strategy, and weekly mindset shifts for the leader ready to move nations, markets, and minds. Visit www.smpistrategies.com or send a note to leadership@smpistrategies.com. And if you're ready for next level coaching or consulting that positions you as the right leader at the right time in the right place, let's talk. This is what we do, and we do it with precision, power, and purpose. Remember, change isn't just something you lead, it's something you become. Stay bold, stay brilliant, stay a game changer.